Imagine waking up one morning and the sky is the wrong color. Not cloudy, not stormy, just wrong. A pale, sickly yellow where blue should be. The sun, if you can even call it that, is a dim, rust-colored smear hanging low on the horizon, giving off almost no warmth. It's summer, but your breath fogs in front of your face. The crops in the field behind your house are dead. Again. For the third year in a row, your children are hungry. Your neighbors are burying their livestock. And somewhere across the ocean, entire civilizations are collapsing. Though you'll never know that, because there are no news channels, no internet, no radio signal cutting through the silence. There is only the cold, and the dark, and the waiting. This was not a nightmare, this was real life for millions of people in the year 536 AD, and it is just one of the 10 events we're going to cover today. Events so catastrophic, so violent, so deeply unsettling that most history textbooks either skim past them in a single paragraph or leave them out entirely. Not because historians didn't find them important, but because some of what happened is almost too horrible to fully explain in a classroom. We're not in a classroom, so let's begin. Event 1, Pompeii, the day the mountains screamed, August 24th, 79 AD, early morning. The city of Pompeii is alive. Bakers are pulling bread from their ovens. Merchants are setting up stalls in the forum. Children are running through narrow stone streets. Somewhere near the harbor, fishermen are hauling in their catch. It is an ordinary morning in one of the most prosperous cities in the Roman Empire. A city of roughly 20,000 people, perched comfortably at the foot of a mountain that hadn't erupted in so long that nobody alive could remember it ever having done so. That mountain was Vesuvius, and at approximately 1 p.m., it detonated. Not slowly, not with warning tremors that sent people fleeing for the countryside. The eruption column shot upward, with a force that modern volcanologists estimate exceeded the combined energy of thousands of nuclear bombs, punching through the atmosphere at supersonic speed and forming a massive mushroom cloud that ancient observer Pliny the Younger, watching from 20 miles away across the Bay of Naples, described as looking like a giant umbrella pine tree. Beautiful, he thought. Then the ash began to fall. Within hours, Pompeii was buried under a suffocating blanket of volcanic pumice, small, lightweight rocks raining down like hellish hail, piling up on rooftops, collapsing weaker structures, forcing people to make impossible choices. Flee now through the streets where chunks of rock are falling from the sky, or shelter inside a building hoping the roof holds. Many chose to shelter. And then, in the dead of night, the real horror arrived. The pyroclastic surge. This is the thing textbooks don't like to dwell on. Not the ash, not the pumice, the surge. A superheated avalanche of gas and volcanic material traveling at speeds exceeding 180 miles per hour, hot enough to vaporize flesh, dense enough to knock down stone walls, utterly silent until the moment it was upon you. When it hit Pompeii, it killed everyone still in the city within seconds. Temperatures inside the surge reached over 500 degrees Fahrenheit. Archaeologists excavating Pompeii in the 1800s made a discovery that stopped them cold: hollow spaces in the ash. Perfectly human-shaped hollow spaces. They poured plaster into the voids and found the people of Pompeii frozen exactly as they had died. A mother curled around her child, a man covering his face with his cloak, a dog still chained to its post. 2,000 years later, you can walk through Pompeii and see their faces, their expressions. Some of them look peaceful, some do not. The city was so thoroughly buried that it was essentially forgotten for over 1,500 years. It wasn't rediscovered until 1748. And when excavators broke through into the first buildings, they found food still on the tables, loaves of bread still in the oven, wine still in amphorae. Pompeii didn't die slowly. It died between one breath and the next, and then the world simply moved on without it. Event 2, the Black Death, when Europe forgot how to bury its dead. A Genoese trading ship docks at the port of Messina in Sicily. The sailors on board are either dead or dying, covered in black, oozing swellings the size of eggs clustered at their armpits and groins, their skin mottled purple and black from internal bleeding. The port authorities immediately order the ship back out to sea. But it is too late. Whatever the sailors brought with them had already set foot on European soil. Within 3 years, the Black Death, the bubonic plague, would kill somewhere between 30 and 60% of Europe's entire population. Let that number settle in for a moment. 60%. In some regions, the death toll was even higher. The city of Florence lost roughly 3/4 of its people. Some villages in rural France and England lost everyone. Survivors described walking through towns in complete silence. No voices, no dogs barking, no church bells ringing for the dead because there was no one left to ring them. Mass graves were dug wherever there was space, in churchyards, in fields, under city streets. When the churchyards filled up, bodies were dumped in rivers. The plague killed so fast that people who went to bed healthy were found dead in the morning. It killed so many that entire social structures collapsed. Priests refused to give last rites. Doctors refused to visit patients. Families abandoned each other. In one letter from the time, an Italian man named Agnolo di Tura wrote that he buried his 5 children with his own hands, and that he could find no one to help him. The plague doctors, the most iconic image of the entire medieval period, appeared in this era. Their long-beaked masks, stuffed with herbs and dried flowers, were meant to filter out what they called miasma, or bad air, which they believed caused the disease. They wore long leather coats, wide-brimmed hats, leather gloves. They carried wooden canes to examine patients without touching them. Walking through a plague-struck city, they must have looked like something from a nightmare, like death itself, dressed in a costume. They were also almost entirely helpless. Nothing they did worked. They didn't understand bacteria. They didn't know about fleas and rats. They could only watch and document, and many of them eventually die themselves. What drove the horror of the Black Death wasn't just the death toll. It was the randomness. Entire noble families wiped out, entire monasteries gone, scholars, craftsmen, farmers, children. There was no pattern, no logic, no mercy. You could pray every day and die by Friday. You could sin your entire life and survive. The medieval mind, built on the idea that God rewarded the righteous and punished the wicked, simply had no framework for what was happening. It broke something in European civilization, and in that broken space, eventually, haltingly, something new grew. The Renaissance, the Reformation, the beginnings of science. It took catastrophe on an almost unimaginable scale to crack open the world and let the light in. But first came the dark, and the smell, and the silence of empty streets. If you're finding this series valuable, and I promise it only gets more intense from here, now is a great time to hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below. What history event terrifies you the most? Tell me in the comments. Let's keep going. Event 3. The Great Tsunamis. When the ocean pulled back and didn't stop here is something that ancient coastal people all over the world learned. Too late and too often. When the ocean pulls back, when the tide retreats far beyond where it has any business retreating, exposing the sea floor, leaving fish flopping in open air and boats tilting on bare wet sand, you do not go to look at the strange spectacle. You run, because what is coming behind that retreating wall of water is not a wave in any ordinary sense. It is an entire column of ocean, from surface to seafloor, displaced by an earthquake or a volcanic eruption and moving across hundreds of miles of open water at the speed of a commercial jet aircraft. When it reaches shallow coastal water, it slows down, but it doesn't lose energy. Instead, it rises, and rises, and rises. The 365 AD Crete earthquake and tsunami devastated the entire eastern Mediterranean. Ancient historian Ammianus Marcellinus described ships being hurled miles inland, passengers walking across exposed seafloor in a daze, and then the water returning. His account is so vivid, so specific, that modern geologists have used it to confirm the event's scale. Greek mythology's great flood stories, Noah's Ark, the Epic of Gilgamesh. Historians now believe these ancient flood narratives from cultures separated by thousands of miles all share a common root, a catastrophically real event, or series of events, at the end of the last ice age, when global sea levels rose rapidly as ice sheets collapsed. The Black Sea, researchers propose, was once a freshwater lake. Around 5600 BC, the rising Mediterranean may have breached a land barrier near what is now the Bosphorus and flooded the Black Sea basin with catastrophic speed, drowning coastlines that entire civilizations called home. The people living there had no word for what was happening. They ran and they told their children, and their children told their children, and 5,000 years later the story became Genesis. The ocean gives no warnings, it gives no second chances, and in the ancient world, when it came for you, it came for everything. Event 4, the French Revolution, Blood in the Square. There is a machine at the center of the French Revolution that most history teachers show students a picture of and then move on very quickly. The guillotine. What the pictures don't convey, what the history books rarely linger on, is the experience of being in the crowds that gathered in the Place de la Révolution in Paris to watch it work. Because they did gather. Every single day during the period known as the Reign of Terror, roughly September 1793 to July 1794, crowds arrived in the square the way people today might show up to a public event. They brought food, they brought children. Street vendors sold programs listing the names of that day's condemned, and then the blade fell. During the Reign of Terror, an estimated 17,000 people were officially executed by guillotine, and an unknown number, potentially tens of thousands more, died in prisons, through summary executions in the provinces, or in mass drownings ordered by revolutionary officials in cities like Nantes. The drownings, called noyades, targeted priests, nobles, and anyone else deemed an enemy of the revolution. People were loaded onto boats with holes cut in the hulls, pushed out into the Loire River and sunk. The revolution that began with the idealistic promise of liberty, equality, and fraternity had, within a few years, devolved into a system where the accusation alone was enough to end a life. No real trial, no appeal. The Committee of Public Safety, led by a lawyer named Maximilien Robespierre, operated on the principle that the Republic could not be merciful to its enemies. Mercy was counter-revolutionary. In the end, Robespierre himself was arrested, tried in a single day and sent to the guillotine by the same system he had built and weaponized against others. The machine he had celebrated as a symbol of revolutionary equality took his head in the same square where so many others had lost theirs. One witness described the crowd's reaction when Robespierre's head was lifted up for display. Silence at first, then cheering, then dancing in the street. The revolution had eaten itself, as revolutions history shows us again and again eventually do. Event 5, the Viking Siege, when the longships appeared in the mist June 8th, 793 AD. The monks of Lindisfarne, a small island monastery off the northeastern coast of England, were going about their morning prayers when they saw the ships. Low, sleek vessels emerging from the North Sea fog, dragon prows, rows of oars pulling in perfect rhythm, no sails, just the ships, coming fast. The monks had no idea what they were, no framework for understanding, no experience of seaborne raids. They had lived on that island for generations in peace, accumulating manuscripts, relics, gold, silver, the treasures of a century of devout Christian scholarship. They had no walls, no weapons, no warning. What happened next was recorded in the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle in language that is still jarring to read. Heathens came and miserably destroyed God's church on Lindisfarne with plunder and slaughter. The Viking Age had begun. What the Chronicle couldn't fully capture, what no brief account can, is the psychological transformation that the Viking raids produced in coastal European communities over the following 2 centuries. The prayer, "O Lord, deliver us from the fury of the Northmen," was added to Catholic liturgy. Coastal monasteries began relocating inland. Entire villages built their homes in marshes and difficult terrain, specifically because longships couldn't follow them there. The shape of European settlement, where people chose to live, how they built their churches, where they stored their most valuable objects, was permanently altered by the terror of the longship, because the Vikings were terrifyingly good at what they did. Their ships were engineering masterpieces, shallow enough to navigate rivers deep into the continent, light enough to be carried overland between waterways, fast enough to outrun anything the coastal kingdoms of the time could launch in response. They could appear without warning, strike with overwhelming violence, and vanish back into the ocean before any organized defense could be mounted. But here is what the popular image often leaves out. The Vikings were also settlers, traders, explorers, and diplomats. They established cities. They founded the Kievan Rus, the precursor state to modern Russia and Ukraine. They reached North America roughly 5 centuries before Columbus. They served as elite palace guards for the Byzantine emperor in Constantinople. They were complex, they were human, but in the moments when the longships appeared out of the fog and the screaming started, none of that complexity mattered. What mattered was running. Event 6. The Mongol invasion. The silence after the storm. There is a city called Nishapur. It was once one of the greatest cities in the Islamic world, a center of learning and culture in what is now northeastern Iran. Its libraries held hundreds of thousands of books. Its bazaars were filled with silk and spices. Its population at its height may have approached 200,000 people. In 1221, the Mongol army arrived. The siege of Nishapur lasted 3 days. When it was over, the Mongols did something that has become one of the most debated and documented acts of mass destruction in human history. They methodically killed every living thing in the city, not just people, dogs, cats, the livestock in the stables, even according to some accounts, the birds in their cages. Then they pulled down every wall and building until nothing stood more than chest height. Then they plowed the earth. The libraries, the books, the manuscripts, the accumulated scholarship of generations were burned. The irrigation systems that had allowed agriculture to sustain the city for thousands of years were deliberately destroyed. In some regions conquered by the Mongols, it took centuries for the population to recover. In some places, it never fully did. The Mongol Empire at its height was the largest contiguous land empire in human history, stretching from the Pacific coast of China to the borders of Eastern Europe. It was built on military genius, extraordinary organization, devastating psychological warfare, and a brutal, calculated policy. Cities that surrendered were spared and absorbed into the empire. Cities that resisted were destroyed completely, and word of that destruction was deliberately spread to the next city on the route. Genghis Khan understood something deeply and terribly. Fear is a force multiplier. An army that makes its enemies surrender without fighting is more efficient than an army that has to fight every battle. It worked. The Mongols conquered more territory in 25 years than the Roman Empire accumulated in 4 centuries. And the rivers, ancient witnesses say, ran red for weeks after the great sieges. The Tigris River, flowing through Baghdad after the Mongol sack of 1258, was said to be dark with the ink of the burned books, and red with the blood of the scholars who wrote them. Event 7. The Fall of Constantinople. The night the walls finally broke for over 1,000 years, the walls of Constantinople had never been breached. 3 sets of walls, a wide moat, towers positioned to allow overlapping fields of fire. The Theodosian walls, built in the early 400s AD, were considered the greatest fortification in the world, and for good reason. They had turned back Attila the Hun, the Visigoths, multiple Arab sieges, and the armies of a dozen different empires. Constantinople, the capital of the Byzantine Empire, sat at the crossroads of Europe and Asia, like an armored jewel, and those walls were its armor. On May 29, 1453, the Ottoman Sultan Mehmed II found the gap in the armor. He had brought something new, something the walls had never faced before, a cannon, or rather a series of cannons, including one so enormous it required 60 oxen to move and a crew of hundreds to operate. When it fired, the sound could be heard from miles away. When its stone balls struck the ancient walls, sections that had stood for 1,000 years crumbled like sand. The siege lasted 53 days. The final assault came in the early hours of the morning, and the defenders, vastly outnumbered, undersupplied, fighting with the knowledge that no relief was coming, fought with a ferocity born of absolute desperation. The last Byzantine emperor, Constantine the Philosopher, reportedly stripped off his imperial regalia, drew his sword, and threw himself into the fighting when the walls were breached. His body was never found. Inside the Hagia Sophia, the great cathedral that had been the spiritual heart of Eastern Christianity for nearly 1,000 years. Thousands of civilians had taken shelter, clutching the belief in a prophecy that an angel would descend and save Constantinople at its darkest moment. When Ottoman soldiers broke through the cathedral doors, no angel came. Constantinople became Istanbul. The Byzantine Empire, the direct continuation of Rome itself, was gone. And the shockwaves traveled across Europe with the speed of nightmare, reshaping the entire geopolitical landscape and accelerating a particular historical process you might know as the Age of Exploration. As Mediterranean trade routes closed and European powers began urgently searching for alternatives, the fall of Constantinople echoes through the modern world in ways most people never think to trace back to that morning, those broken walls, that missing emperor. Before we get to the final three, and I promise you the last three are the ones that will genuinely keep you up at night, take 2 seconds right now. Subscribe if you haven't, leave a comment with which event shocked you most, and share this with someone who thinks history is boring. Trust me, they're wrong. Let's finish this. Event 8, 536 AD, the year the sun went out. We started here in the cold pre-dawn of the worst year in human history. Let's go deeper. 536 AD. Scientists and historians now call it the beginning of the late antique Little Ice Age, a period of climatic catastrophe triggered by what appears to have been a massive volcanic eruption somewhere in Iceland or possibly North America. The eruption sent a veil of volcanic ash and sulfur into the stratosphere, where it spread around the globe and blocked a significant percentage of incoming solar radiation. The results were immediate and catastrophic. Summer temperatures in Europe dropped by 1.5 to 2.5 degrees Celsius, which doesn't sound like much until you understand that this was enough to kill crops across the continent. Ireland experienced an 18-month-long drought. China recorded summer snowfall. Peru experienced the most severe droughts in 1,000 years. Tree ring data from trees all over the world showed dramatically stunted growth beginning in 536 and continuing for years afterward. And then it got worse. Because 536 was not a single event, it was the beginning of a cascade. In 540 and 547, additional major volcanic eruptions reinforced the veil of ash in the atmosphere, keeping temperatures suppressed. In 541, in the middle of this climatic catastrophe, when populations were already weakened by years of crop failure and hunger, the plague of Justinian arrived, the first bubonic plague pandemic in recorded history. It killed perhaps half the population of the Byzantine Empire. It destabilized the Sasanian Persian Empire. It hammered post-Roman Europe just as it was beginning to reorganize. Medieval historian and monk Cassiodorus, writing in 536, described the sun as giving light without brightness like the moon. He described the entire year as passing in a kind of twilight, crops failing, the normal rhythm of seasons disrupted beyond recognition. We marvel, he wrote, to see no shadows of our bodies at noon. The darkness lasted for roughly 18 months. Climate scientist Michael McCormick, who has spent years studying this period, has called 536 AD the beginning of one of the worst periods to be alive, if not the worst year. The collapse it triggered reshaped the world. The weakening of the great empires of late antiquity opened the door for the rise of Islam in the 600s, the expansion of the Slavic peoples into Eastern Europe, and the beginning of the early Middle Ages, a period of dramatic geopolitical reorganization that would take centuries to stabilize, all from a volcanic eruption that nobody at the time could see, understand, or explain. Event 9, the super eruption, Toba and the edge of extinction. If 536 was bad, it was a campfire compared to what happened approximately 74,000 years ago at a site in what is now northern Sumatra, Indonesia, the Toba supervolcanic eruption. To call it the largest volcanic eruption in the last 2 million years is accurate, but it barely communicates the scale. The eruption ejected an estimated 2,800 cubic kilometers of material into the atmosphere, roughly 2,800 times the volume of material ejected by the 1980 eruption of Mount St. Helens. The ashfall covered most of South Asia in a blanket estimated at between 3 and 9 meters deep in some areas. Ash has been found in deposits as far away as the Arabian Sea and Eastern Africa. The global temperature drop that followed, the volcanic winter, may have lasted a decade or more. Here is the part that made scientists stop and look at each other when they first pieced it together. Genetic analysis of modern human populations shows something deeply strange. Approximately 70,000 to 80,000 years ago, right around the time of the Toba eruption, human genetic diversity collapsed dramatically. As in, somewhere between roughly 3,000 and 10,000 individuals may have been all that remained of our species on the planet. Modern humans are, genetically speaking, remarkably similar to one another. More similar than you'd expect for a species of 8 billion. Scientists believe this is because we all descend from a very small population that survived some kind of catastrophic bottleneck event. The Toba theory suggests that the bottleneck was the eruption, that whatever humans were living in South and Southeast Asia, the populations most directly in the ash fall zone, may have been largely or entirely wiped out. That our ancestors, perhaps a small group in Africa, huddled through years of volcanic winter with almost nothing, clinging to survival by the thinnest possible margin. We don't know if this is true. The evidence is suggestive but not conclusive. Scientists debate it, but consider the possibility. Consider that the entire human future, everything we have ever built, written, created, discovered, came terrifyingly close to not happening. That the difference between a world with human history in it and a world without may have come down to a few thousand people, somewhere in Africa, surviving cold and dark and hunger that lasted for years. We are, perhaps, the children of the survivors of an apocalypse we have entirely forgotten. Event 10, the ancient massacre, Bones in the Earth. A team of archaeologists is excavating a site in Germany called Schöneck-Kilianstätten. They are digging carefully, methodically, cataloging finds, making notes, and then they start finding the bones. Not one, not 10, hundreds. The skeletal remains of at least 26 individuals, all buried together in a mass grave, in a way that tells a very specific and very disturbing story. Nearly every skeleton shows signs of extreme violence. Skulls crushed, limb bones shattered, specifically the lower leg bones, the kind of fracture that happens when someone is kneeling or lying on the ground and a weapon comes down from above. Teeth knocked out, evidence of burning. This was not a battle. Battles don't look like this. Battles produce casualties. What the archaeologists found at Schöneck-Kilianstätten looks far more like what happens when an organized force systematically murders an entire village, men, women, children, and then breaks their bones so they cannot walk away, even in death. The mass grave dates to approximately 5000 BC, Neolithic period. The farmers and their families were among the earliest agricultural communities in Europe, part of a culture called the Linear Pottery Culture, or LBK. They had been farming this landscape for generations. They built long wooden houses. They kept cattle and raised grain. And someone killed all of them, or almost all of them, because archaeologists noticed something. Among the victims, there are almost no young women of childbearing age. The demographic distribution of the massacre victims suggests that while men, children, and older women were killed on the spot, younger women may have been taken. Where? By whom? To what fate? The archaeological record does not say. It only shows us the bones and the absence and leaves us to imagine the rest. Schöneck-Kilianstätten is not unique. Similar mass graves from the Neolithic period have been found across Europe. Talheim in Germany, Aspernschletz in Austria, Crow Creek in South Dakota. Each one tells the same story in different soil. Violence as old as civilization itself. Older, perhaps, than civilization. Older than writing. Older than recorded history. Which means this is the cruelest thing these events reveal. The capacity for organized mass violence is not a modern invention. It is not a product of industrialization or nationalism or social media radicalization. It is something that was already there, already fully formed, already operational, before any of the institutions we trust to contain it even existed. Those bones in the earth don't just represent ancient victims. They represent a question that humanity has been answering, imperfectly and repeatedly, for 7,000 years. What are we capable of doing to each other? 10 events. 10 windows into the worst that history has to offer. A volcanic city buried mid-morning. A plague that made half of Europe disappear. Waves that consumed entire coastlines and became the memory of a flood. A revolution that built a machine of death and then fed itself into it. Ships emerging from fog carrying organized destruction. An empire built on the mathematics of terror. Walls that stood 1,000 years, broken in a single night. A year when the sun stopped working. A prehistoric eruption that nearly ended humanity before humanity had begun to write down its name. And bones in German soil that remind us the capacity for atrocity is not something we invented recently. History books leave most of this out, not always out of dishonesty, sometimes out of space, sometimes out of a desire to keep the narrative manageable, sometimes because the details are simply too raw for a standard curriculum. But if we don't look at the raw material, if we only accept the sanitized version of the past, then we don't actually understand how we got here. We don't understand how fragile civilization is, how recently it was built, how many times it nearly didn't survive. We don't understand the distance our species has actually traveled, and we don't understand what it costs to stay here. The people of Pompeii didn't know they were waking up on the last morning of their city. The monks of Lindisfarne didn't know the world was about to change forever. The defenders of Constantinople didn't know as they died in the dark that their emperor would never be found. They lived through history without knowing what it meant. We have the gift and the responsibility of looking back and understanding what they could not. Use it. If this video meant something to you, subscribe right now, I mean it. Smash the like button so the algorithm shows this to more people who deserve to know this history. And tell me in the comments, which of these 10 events genuinely disturbed you the most? Which one are you going to research further? Which one changed how you think about the world we're living in? Because history isn't a dead thing, it's the foundation under your feet. And some foundations, as the people of Pompeii learned in a single afternoon, are more fragile than they look. See you in the next one.